Okay, we're just going to go straight to questions for the South Carolina players.
No question.
Front row.
Michi, for you and coming into this tournament as a veteran playing your final college basketball game, what are the emotions surrounding that when you look back on your career, and what are your big takeaways?
Yeah, all glory to my God, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Also, thank you to the SEC, thank you University of South Carolina, all the professors, my coaches, my teammates, the trainers, everybody that I've encountered with. It just made me a better person, off the court. And just thankful to be able to play tonight with no injuries this year. Just a blessing to be able to finish my career out here. I couldn't ask God for a better way to go out. I mean, I wish we won, but, just being here with these guys, it's always a blessing. I feel like I ended up the right way with Coach Paris and these guys.
Front row.
Michi, tough shooting night for you from outside. What was going on defensively with them that kind of took you out of your shooting game tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say I just didn't hit shots. I don't think it was really anything that they did to me that, caused me to do that. I got great looks from these guys, and just one of the nights. It's unfortunate, to go out that way. I definitely take that. If I hit shots, it can be a completely different game. So, yeah, it was just one of them nights and not a good night to have that night.
Any more questions for the players? Gentlemen, thank you. If you would exit to your right.
You say, yeah.
Oh.
Kobe, for you, big night offensively. Second half, though, you guys came out and they took control. What was sort of the difference as you saw it from the way you guys played much of the first half and then carried over the second half?
Yeah, I felt like just the foul trouble from me and Mike in the first half kind of slowed our momentum down. We got to be smarter. Obviously, not to pick up those 2 fouls and put Coach Paris in a tough situation like happened to us in the game. But we just got to be. We had to be better just coming out in the second half, and they came out and hit us first, and we had to respond, but it was just little defensive cues that we weren't executing on, and some bad fouls, but. That's kind of the whole thing. We just had to, shots kind of weren't falling in the second half how they were in the first half, but, we just had to be better. That's kind of all.
Any more questions for the players? Okay, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
That way. Okay, we'll go straight to questions for Coach. If you would, raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you. We'll start right here, center.
Coach, obviously not the year that you guys hoped for when you started off many months ago, but
Yep.
What can you as a coach learn from the experience of the struggle that this season was?
Patience, I think, is a big part of it. Just in trying to get a particular message across and trying to get guys to pick up on certain things. And we improved. We got better at a lot of things. Growth, I always say growth happens on your timeline. You can't force the growth. It just happens on whatever the timeline is as you absorb and can process information. And so this team, while it grew significantly, grew slower. And so I think in some ways that led to part of it. Early on we also had a lot of different lineups, and it was a combination of not only consistency on behalf of some guys' parts, but we also had some injuries. We had probably 3 different concussions early on in the season, and so we didn't have a long stretch of the same lineup for a long time. But you try to take some time to process the season immediately after the season. But it's just how to keep on persevering and learning more about how the guys process information. It changes from year to year. I feel like in the last couple of years it's changed even more for a variety of reasons. But, just you're constantly always trying to learn your team. I think I've heard probably more coaches saying that this year more than any other year I've been around, but constantly trying to learn your team and push buttons that can help them be better. But we did have a resilient group. I mean, if you look at even this game and the way we came out in this game and the way that we played, it wasn't for any lack of effort. Certainly that we didn't come out on top. And so, hopefully it'll be a good experience for some of the guys, some of the younger guys. Really just how to always learning and taking in how to get a message across and what buttons to push. The buttons continually change, and that's a part of your job as the coach to find the button that incites any particular reaction.
Far right.
Yeah, just speaking on tonight's game, it didn't feel like after maybe halfway through the first half, y'all were able to get many stops defensively. What was going on that end of the court for you guys?
Yeah, we came out and we're doing some good things defensively. And then they got into a groove with some of their ball screen stuff. I mean, we switched, we changed ball screen coverages a few times, and they had a good answer for each one. Their bigs did a good job of catching the ball in a short roll and then making some decisions. They also threw the ball away a couple of times, but by and large, I think their bigs made good decisions. A lot of it stemmed from that. We switched it some, so the ball screen was slightly less effective, and then they attacked us off the dribble, and when we had some matchups that weren't ideal. Ball screening, the process of screening is changing, and there's a thing that's happening without getting too deep into it or getting myself in trouble. There's a thing that's happening in ball screening, and it's different. It hasn't been this way in recent years, and so they performed it well. We had a hard time adapting to it, and it's on the cusp of, whether it's a legal, just like so many things are. I can block out very aggressively, and sometimes it's going to be a foul, and sometimes it's not going to be a foul. But we were navigating this game specifically in how to figure out how to guard that particular ball screen situation in an effective way. But I think a lot of it came down to that. But then they also made some shots in the first half. I thought we played pretty good defense in a couple of situations, and they made shots that we normally would concede that a player at this level is you'll settle for that shot above all other things, and they made a couple of those shots. That was, and then our offense didn't keep pace. We were for the first 2/3 of the first half, maybe 3/4 of the first half. I thought offensively we were getting a lot of things and playing well and making shots and ultimately our offense did not keep pace that allowed them to get back into the game. And then with what they were doing offensively, they extended the lead in the second half. And again, we just, we had some guys that didn't shoot the ball well, generated pretty good shots. It was a little harder in the second half. They were being physical with us. But overall, we had some guys that just, would like to have the day back and like to have those shots back. And runs would have been normal runs to where you're within a window of 4, 5, 6 on either side of being even. Instead, it got up to double figures, and we tried to make one more charge and cut it back down to 10 maybe, I think, at one point. And then again, we were being aggressive at that point, and they took advantage of it.
Front row to your left.
Now, you kind of covered part of my question, but you're up 13, a little over 7 to go in the first half. They're kind of on their heels, and you got the ball, and Walker takes a long three and misses, and think you guys made one shot the rest of the half. Was that shot maybe one that you would prefer not to be taken by him at that point, considering you had your offense going in such a kind of a groove at that point and you were making good shots from others?
Yeah, I don't know that one shot would derail what you were doing that way. Guys have to have freedom to play offensively and know who they are. I mean, he's made some threes. We err on the side of having, we try to get guys that know who they are as a player and pretty much stick to the things that they do well. But a big part of it too was, like Kobe mentioned, you had Mike and Kobe in some foul trouble, and so that meant extended minutes for some other guys. I thought Michi was tired at one point in the first half, and then what's your substitution going to be at that point? And so we rode with that group for a long time, and so we had a good flow. That group had a good flow going. We were moving, cutting, passing. We called maybe a few more plays in the first half than we did in the second half. Maybe we could have gone back to that a little bit more, but still, as I look at it, we still had some good shots that didn't go down, that maybe don't necessarily win the game, but they put the game within a range. Just making a reasonable amount of those shots puts the game in a range within that you can play well for the next couple minutes and you'll be right where you need to be. But I think those guys and just that group was in a groove. And then when the fouls happened, it forced some substitutions, and we just never got it back in that first half.
Lamont, now that you know that you're back for next season, pardon me asking, but what will the first steps of the offseason look like for you? I'm sure with exit meetings and whatnot. And if there was an opportunity for you guys to potentially play in like the NIT or something, would that be something you're open to?
Yeah. So you immediately after this, you process, what's going on, and you end up getting back to campus, and we'll have meetings immediately with all the guys that are out of eligibility, and then certainly all the guys that have eligibility still, and so that's par for the course in any year, but in this landscape, certainly those are important meetings to have, and a lot of honesty in those meetings, and self-reflection on both behalves, and so ultimately there's so much mobility that in conjunction with a player and their family and any of the people that are in their circle, you come to a decision on who will be here the next year and who won't be here the next year. Those will generally happen relatively quickly, and then you'll have an idea of what you need to bring in that to fulfill or to fill some of those voids. So some of that stuff will start happening immediately. Even just evaluation of players and what that looks like. That'll happen pretty quickly. In fact, probably some of it has been happening to some degree, but that'll start to happen pretty quickly, and it's probably pretty universal. I would guess, even the people that are going to continue to be playing. And then what was the second part of your question again? Oh, yeah. NIT, I don't know. Some of it will depend on, I'll talk with a couple of the guys. Guys have to be motivated to play in the NIT. God bless the NIT. I've always really liked the NIT. But guys have to be really motivated. We live in a different world now, and you got guys that are going to start training for the NBA Combine or for any workouts that they may have. It's different now. That was a deal last year with Colin Murray Boyles, who went 9th in the draft, but he was already preparing and was working with a trainer, and so he wasn't going to be available, and that was a large part to why we decided not to play in the NIT last year. I think if you look across the landscape, particularly with high majors, that's happening more frequently. So I'll consider it. But a lot of it will just be dependent upon what, if we were invited, what our older guys, where they are in terms of, their appetite for playing in the NIT. Because I don't think it does you any good just to play it if guys aren't really excited. And I've been in it, and I've been in it as a mid-major too. And I'm telling you, if you come in as a high major and you're not ready to play and you're not excited about playing, you're going to lose. I mean, you're going to lose. So it just doesn't do anything to do it just because, I want to do it selfishly to get a couple more wins, or maybe we'll do it for, if I thought there was real merit and there was real excitement about it, it would be a good experience. But, a lot of that just will depend on the guys too.
Last question up front.
You said earlier you can't force growth, and that's something you've said really since you've been here.
Yeah.
It seems like next year has got to come about quicker. How do you spur it? I know you said you can't force it, but how can you spur a team to grow more quickly next year than it did this past year or this season?
That's a good question, a fair question. The process of recruiting has changed so much. And so there's some level of the unknown just with a smaller window that you have recruiting guys than you have in the past. I mean, you used to recruit guys out of high school. You'd recruit them when they were in 9th and 10th grade. And so there's a little bit of the unknown that way, but some of it is recruiting some players that specifically already do certain things, and recruiting some guys that will have less growth needed. Some of our growth was as a team, but I think that happened pretty well for our group. I think we played together. I think we shared the ball. I don't think we had anybody that was selfish, that we were spending a lot of time on determining what was a good shot and a bad shot. Like we grew pretty quickly that way as a unit. The growth that I'm talking about was by and large some individuals that needed to improve this or improve that. So in some ways in the recruiting process, you can recruit guys that do certain things a little more advanced in certain areas. Let's not, kid ourselves. Now the more advanced players are, there's a price tag that's attached to those guys. I hate to even say it that way, but that's kind of what it is, versus if you think about a seasoned veteran, a fifth-year senior that was all conference and in some other league, versus a young, unproven player. There's going to be, those guys are going to command different amounts. And so some of it is just trying to, in the recruiting process, identify some players that are a little more advanced in this area or that area to begin with.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.